and welcome to this series of education sessions developed by District 98. I am Chandrashekhar, Toastmaster Chandrashekhar, past district director of this district, District 98, and I must say that I'm excited to be presenting this education session as a digital resource on dissolving conflicts. Now, what do we understand by the word conflict? Of course, we all have heard of this time and again, but do we really understand conflict? And those of you who are wondering, why do I have to understand conflict? I just have to avoid it. Well, I think the answer to avoiding these conflicts lies in our understanding of conflict. Now, what I am going to do today is to take you through certain models which have worked in the past in dissolving conflicts, or in your words, avoiding conflicts. But to do that, I need to first tell you why am I the right person to talk about conflicts at all? Well, a little bit of my history with conflicts goes like this. I was one person who was handling three assignments at one stage in 2016 of three different organizations. One was my day job. As a chief executive officer of JGI schools, my job was more about people management, and you can imagine what it entails to handle the office of the CEO. Along with that, in that very year, 2016, I was focused on steering the then newly formed district, District 98, in its very year of infancy towards President Distinguished District. Thirdly, apart from these two responsibilities, I was also the chairperson for Confederation of Indian Industries Young Indians. Now, these three organizations, all three forward looking organizations, have different agendas and different responsibilities, and needless to say, different set of leaders. Now, when you are trying to work with them, you are at conflict at multiple levels. One, a conflict in your own life about how much time you need to give to different organizations and where are you in the center of all of this. Two, how do you handle different priorities in different places in different organizations of different people? And three, how can you still achieve the goals of these organizations in spite of, despite of, with or without conflicts? Now, that's the qualification I bring to the table when I am talking to you today for the next 20 minutes on dissolving conflicts. All right, then, without much ado, let's get started. And I hope you deliver or you derive value out of this presentation from my end. So while I do that, you'll have to wait for a couple of minutes and I will pull out the presentation. And if you don't have a notepad and a pen around, this is your time to grab it because this model is worth note taking. While I'll get the presentation started. All right then. So I'm assuming that you're all back, and I also assume that you can see my screen without any disturbance. As I said, the title of this particular presentation is Dissolving Conflicts. Now, before we get started, let's also have a look at a simple video presentation where you understand how does conflict really happen? Is it all serious or is it also funny when it comes to conflicts at our place? This scenario, which is an animated video, will give us some idea about conflict, and this is also the right time for you to go back and anchor onto one such conflict which you are toying with at this point in time. It may be from your personal life, it may be from your Toastmasters life, it may be from your work life, or it may be from your friend's life. But the idea here is to keep one conflict in the center for the rest of the presentation so that we can analyze it from different dimensions and perspectives. So for that, you'll have to give me a second. I'll pull out the video. All right, here we go. All right. So now, if you're wondering, what has this video got to do with dissolving conflicts? And if you are asking this question, that this is my case, how does Chandra know about it? Or who am I in this entire video? Well, my answer to all of them is simple. This is not just connected or pertaining to only you, but it is pertaining to all of us, including my life. All of us have these conflicts arising day in and day out as we go on with our life. Now, if I go back in this video for a moment and look at, okay, what is that we can learn out of it? For that, you need to look at who are we in this entire context of the video. Are we those two big uh, egoistic characters which came at the first, where they were not letting go of their space and they wanted to cross over first? Or are we those two little characters, whatever you want to call them, who kind of came up with a compromise and, in fact, towards the end, you bent and then you let them go? Am I that or am I this? The answer is no. We are none of those characters. We are the bridge. Yes, you heard me right. We are the bridge. And look at those characters as conflicts in our life. Let me give you an example. Now I have a to do list. Now I have certain things which are very, very important to be done. And let's consider them to be those two big egoistic characters. Now, both of them are fighting for my attention on my to do list. Now, if I look at them and let them fight, my day is going to go out of schedule. But if I compromise, if I kind of tactically handle it, I might be able to handle both of them just the way the bridge did it. The bridge twisted itself so that it let go of those conflicting hurdles and then tried to stay back. Now, this might all get a little confusing, but if you put it in your context and you say, no, I am not the conflict, I am just the person in whose life conflicts are present. Yes, I repeat that. I am not the conflict, but I am just the person in whose life the conflicts are present makes a big difference. Now you look at it from the bridge perspective. Bridge in itself is not the conflict, but it is obvious for us to get carried away by saying, oh, that's the conflict. We should have built a bigger, wider, better bridge. No, bridge cannot be considered as a conflict. It is those people, those characters who are crossing over are creating the conflict. So I think that's the biggest takeaway from that video for me. And that by now must have given you a little bit of a different perspective of looking at conflicts. You are not the conflict. You are just that person in whose life conflicts are present. Now, with that line, let's move forward. All right. Normally, in my 3 hour workshop on conflict management, I take this step by step. But today, since I'm talking to a smart audience, I don't have to waste that kind of time. So let me present to you what I call as the anger volcano. Now, anger volcano is very simple to what happens to us within a fraction of a second. Those of you who are fascinated by fast cars, you must know this line which the marketing people use. They say, buy this car, you can race from 0 to 60 in less than 4 seconds. That's exactly what happens to us when we want to decode this anger volcano. You go from unmet needs to violent in less than 4 seconds. And there are stages we cross through. One, unmet need being the first stage. Now, let me explain what is unmet need. You want something, but that's not coming the way you expected, and there creates an unmet need. Simple as it sounds, you want something which is a required need and that is not met. So, unmet and unmet need kind of snowballs into feelings. What we don't worry about why we did not get, but we worry about what caused that to happen. And their feelings get generated. Oh, maybe that person do not like me. Maybe that person wants to irritate me. Maybe this is what is the reason why he's doing. Maybe last time I was not fair to that person, so that person is treating me this way. That's the feeling generated there. And from there on, move forward, you get anger. In that step from feelings to anger is an assumption. Why? Okay, this is the best way. The ego defense mechanism of an individual comes into picture because you assume that that person is doing it intentionally, or that conflict or that unmet need is because somebody has an intention to disappoint you. And from there, you get into rage. What is rage? Is you can call it cold war, you can call it abuse, you can call it washing dirty linen in public, whatever you want to call it. That's rage, right? Nasty is another way of expressing it. And finally, it's the violence. What's the violence? Violence need not be beating somebody or belting somebody. Violence can be that expression which is one, uncalled for, two, nasty, and three, below the belt, in whatever way. That's what happens. And now all of us, if we take a step back, we have things which we are not proud of. We have things which we feel bad about. We have done things in the past which we regret. And that's what can be referred as violence in the whole context. So now that you know the anger volcano, you don't have to worry about why this is required to handle or dissolve conflict at this stage, because this is a piece of information which you should know to connect the dots towards the end. Moving forward, if you look at conflict norms, there are basically two sides to it. The first side is from the individual perspective, which is I have an acceptable behavior and I have an unacceptable behavior. From the team's perspective, again, there is an acceptable behavior and there is unacceptable behavior. Now, the problem here is your acceptable behavior may be team's unacceptable behavior. And the team's acceptable behavior may not be acceptable to you as an individual. Let me give you an example. Now, I am a vegetarian, right? So, for me, my acceptable behavior is non vegetarian food is a strict no. Now, I work in an organization, and in that organization, I have a team, and all of those team members relish non-vegetarian food, and not just non-vegetarian food. They like to experiment. They like to try different flavors, different cuisines every time. Now, when I go out on team outings, you can imagine my state. Now, that's an unacceptable behavior for me as far as an individual is concerned, but then the team's acceptable behavior is absolutely that. I'm just giving you a very day-to-day example because I don't want to bring everything to the context of Toastmasters. Because conflict is not restricted only to Toastmasters, it is in our life. Remember the bridge? That's what I'm here to talk to you about. So, conflict has certain norms, and let's understand how that works. Look at this individual, team. But then, if you put it in a circular dimension, it works on different layers. First layer is the individual layer, the outermost layer. But you go a little more deeper, you talk about relationship, you talk about environment, you talk about information, and you talk about issue. Let me give you a secret even before I get started. The conflict is in the issue, but then it gets projected at other layers and not at the issue. That's why the yellow dot in the center is empty. Now let's go back and then come back into the center from the outside. So at the individual level, you have these things: knowledge, skills, values, self esteem, positions, reputation, and unsolved issues. Now, unsolved issue may not be mistaken to the issue at the center. Unsolved issues are there may be every other thing which is happening in your life which is still yet to be solved, but that has got nothing to do with the issue at hand. However, they play on your mind and that creates the conflict. I mean, ask yourself, people are trying to present to you something, but then there is something else going on, which we normally call as your conversation with yourself. So you keep conversing, and because of that conversation, you kind of question the issue on hand, and sometimes you may not even agree. So that happens at the individual level. The solution for that is self awareness. Try to be self aware and as much as possible, because the more you are self aware, the better it is for you to remove all of that, clear the clutter, and focus on the issue at hand. Second is relationship. A relationship, you look at that. Two, three individuals coming together, predominantly same things, unsolved issues, positions, reputation will come there, but then it's multiplied. It's in a pluralistic sense. So somebody has their unsolved issue, you have your unsolved issue, and then there is a clash. The answer there is open communication. You are self aware, they are self aware, encourage each other to express the reality, encourage each other to share openly, have an open mind, and thereby you reduce that iron curtain. The third one is environmental. Now we are all product of our environment. We work in an ecosystem. No one is working as an isolated individual or on an island. They say famous proverb goes like this: no man is an island. So when you look at that, there is a physical space, that is the space in which we all work. Then there is politics. Politics is not about the parties we represent or we prefer. Politics is about our ideology. Each one of us have a set of ideologies. So that's that. And then the culture. Now, what is the culture? Culture is a sum total of your values, beliefs, and also your skills. We are all upbringing, or we are all abroad or brought up in a particular manner where that culture plays an important role. So these are the different things which becomes a part of our environment. Sometimes it is external, and sometimes it is internal, because you were a part of that environment a while ago, but you are moved on to the next room, but still that environment is carrying over with you. It happens when you attend a Toastmasters meeting on a Friday evening or a Saturday morning, and then you come back to your workplace or you come back to your home. You are in that environment, but suddenly here you don't find encouragement, you don't find applause, or you don't find that positivity, and you are at conflict within yourself. Now, with all this, there is another piece which is information. And what's that information got to do? Information is closer to the issue. Now, look at it in that model. Issue is at the center, the immediate surrounding layer is the information. And that information gives you facts, opinions, and perspectives. But we are not interested in that because we are coming from the external point of view. We're coming from my value system, my beliefs, my values, my unsolved issues to the real issue. No, So the only way out of conflict is inside out. Go to the center and then come out. So when you are at the issue, then look at what is the information that issue is talking about. What are the facts? What are the opinions? What are the perspectives? Now, by then, you don't really worry about the environment. You don't really worry about relationship. You don't really worry about individual. Let's take a very visible example. Just imagine there is a fire. There's a fire in the building opposite to you. The fire men come around and then they start getting into action. Now, will they worry about how did this cause, who caused it, what happened? No. They straight away go to the center of the issue. There is fire, which is the tipping point or which is the nodal point. They try to extinguish that. And around that, they start looking at what are the facts available. What is the degree of burn? How can we solve it? Can a couple of tankers solve this or they need more help? They need paramedical staff, they need other support systems. That's the way it works. Conflict in that context, in a visible way, I'm just trying to put it in front of you. Right? So the answer, if you look at this model, is not from the outside in, but it is from the inside out. This is my last model. And when I talk about this, I talk it with a lot of empathy. And why do I say this? Is because we have always this choice. And when you say, I don't have a choice, you're actually saying, I don't like the other choice. So please take a step back and say, I always have a choice. Whether I like it or I don't like it, but I do always have a choice. And that's why I have this particular matrix, which is into two axes. Number one, you have the assertiveness, and then you have the cooperativeness. On your y-axis is your assertiveness, is the degree to which you try to satisfy your own concerns. Please read that carefully. The degree to which you try to satisfy your own concerns. That is protecting my concerns, my perspectives, and my preferences. Cooperativeness, on the other end, is the degree to which you try to satisfy other parties' concerns. Other parties' concerns is the degree to which you are accommodated. You are open for ideas. You're open to listen. You're open to converse. You're open for a compromise. Now, this is the real conflict. The science in dissolving conflict is bringing it closer. So the variance should reduce. Now, how does it reduce? The center is already there, compromise, but then you have competing, you have avoiding. So that's the extreme of assertiveness. Either you avoid the issue totally and say, no, I don't want to go there because I'm not ready to let go of what my preferences are. Or you compete, okay, either you or me. It's your way versus my way. That's the extreme. On the other hand, it is accommodating. It's like, okay, I have nothing to lose. Everything what you say is fine. Let's shake hands, let's hug each other, and let's go on. But there, your preferences have gone out of the window already. Or collaborating. Okay, great. I have one idea, you have another idea, let's work together. That's very rare because not every idea is complementary, right? So collaborating becomes a little tough when it is conflicting because emotions are involved. Remember the anger volcano? Emotions are involved in a conflict. So that's why the best way is compromising. What is compromising? Is finding a middle way. See, it's easy for me to say, okay, if I'm not going in your way, I don't want to go in my way either, but I don't want to kind of stay here. Let's find out a third way. Or if I put it reverse, if it is not my way, it cannot be your way. Let's find out another way. Now, see, that's compromising. And that way, what happens is, since it's a new way, your feelings, your emotions, your preferences, everything can take a backseat and say, it's okay. I did not get, and he did not get. As silly as it may sound, that's the fact of life. They say in a nice story, which I don't have time to narrate, they say, it's okay if I lose my one eye, as long as you lose your one other eye. You understand the point, right? So I don't mind losing one eye if you are also ready to lose your another eye. So here the focus is not on losing my eye. Here the focus is even Steven. But sadly, that's conflict resolution. We need to come together for a compromise. That's a very dark example of losing an eye, but I just want to tell you that to drive the point. I'm not proposing you getting violent or beating each other up or fighting with each other. So, just to drive the point, I just gave you that example from that story, right? So, this is in a nutshell how do we dissolve conflicts. So, what I am here to tell you towards the end, to conclude, is just one simple thing. Remember, conflicts are not you, conflicts are in your life. Because once you recognize that factor, you will start gathering the ammunition and the expertise to resolve conflict. But if you do not recognize that and you become the conflict on your own mind, then the problem is a different thing. It's more of psychosocial. And what do I mean by psychosocial is you start getting into self pity. You start getting into ego defensiveness. You start getting into the fact that people don't like me, or I'm not popular, or this is not working. Those things do not take you anywhere. So, conflict is not you, conflicts exist in your life. That's the first thing. The second thing in important is please understand that the only way to resolve the conflict is inside out and not outside in. You are at the outside, the issue is at the center. So you got to start from the center, not from the other side. So don't look at it from my point of view. Look at it from the issue's point of view. In fact, let me tell you this is truth. In all my academic committee review meetings, which I chair once a month, the opening line, even before the meeting is called to order, is this: we agree to differ, we differ on the issue, but we will never differ on the relationship. And this, my set of leaders, whether it is center managers, principals, or academic directors, all of them have to chant it. Yes, there are a couple of more, like how we follow in Toastmasters, but that's not relevant here. But the one thing which is relevant here is we agree to differ, we differ on the issue, and we never will differ on the relationship. And then the next 3 hours is brutal. We tear them apart. We don't care what they think because they know that we are talking about the issue here. So please keep that in mind. And the last part is this: as nice as it sounds that collaborating is the way forward, but when it comes to resolving conflict, don't start with collaboration. That's best if it is achieved, but go for compromise. Because the more you go for compromise, collaboration will happen. I mean, look at it. You need to swim, you first have to get into that mindset first. You need to cycle, you need to get into the mindset first. You need to fight, you need to get into the mindset first. In fact, my mentor says it very nicely. Success happens twice, once in your mind, and the second time actually. So is collaboration. For collaboration to happen, you need to first come from a compromising point of view. Your mindset should be compromising. That is the reason I say compromise is what you should focus on, not collaboration. Because for those of you who understand technical graph, if you are ready to reduce the difference, that's when you can look at new synergy, right? So if you are at the extreme, you are lost. Life is all about averages. You need to come to the average, and in my chart, average is compromise. With this, I thank you for this opportunity, and I wish you that you have less and less conflicts to dissolve in your life. But at the end of the day, it is life, my friend. So conflicts do come up. As long as you remember you have it in you to take care of them head on, I don't think you have anything to worry. Thank you once again for this great opportunity and wish you all the very best in all your future endeavors.